So I finished up the first half of my competition season the weekend before last, and have started lifting my training intensity and training amount. I'd had 6 straight weeks of non-stop intensive competition, sometimes with a big competition during the week and league matches in the weekend. So I really had to cut down my training so I could turn up fresh to the matches. There's nothing worse than turning up fatigued, already tired mentally and physically to matches and trying to perform at your best. My biggest improvements here in Austria have been my body position, footwork and power. I feel more comfortable staying low to the ground with my body while still moving and still being able to rotate my upper body. At the beginning, when I arrived here in mid-September, I was often caught reaching for the ball and standing up after my shots, so I'm really happy with these improvements. I've had a few questions about my recent change of blade, which was explained in the last episode, episode 8. So I've changed to a slower blade. It's an aramid carbon blade. So it's certainly not slow, it's just not as fast as my old blade. The change has been positive for me and I feel it's already improved parts of my game. I really feel that the blade's giving me more control in my shots while still allowing me to get good power. Having a fast blade makes it more difficult to generate your own speed and spin on the ball. It makes it easier to use the spin and the speed that your opponent is giving you. I've got a lot of natural talent at using the opponent's spin and speed against them, but I often struggle to generate enough power myself, especially on the forehand. The slower blade has a longer dwell time due to the softer wood that it has. So that means that the ball stays on the racket for a little bit longer before being thrown back out. It's also got a higher throw, which means the ball naturally is encouraged to go in a higher arc over the net with more dip, whereas the faster blades generally have a flatter, less spinny trajectory. The first few days of hard training went really well and I was able to push myself hard. But after that, I started getting pain on the bottom of my left foot, which just got worse and worse. By Sunday, I was struggling to practice, and by the next day, I could barely walk. It turned out that I had a corn on the bottom of my foot, but I like the German word for it better, which is Hühneraugen, or chicken eyes, believe it or not. I had my first ever pedicure and I kind of liked it. The lady hacked away at my feet for 15 or 20 minutes and I was amazed by how much actually came off. I needed to rest for a few days afterwards, so Danny and I took a visit to Salzburg, which is about 300 kilometers or 190 miles from Vienna. It's a beautiful old city and we loved exploring the area for a few days. I've often regretted not seeing as much of the local countries as I could have done during my travels with table tennis. I've often been so focused on the tournament or the training I've been doing and just haven't had a chance to experience the sights and the culture of those countries. We got back last night and I started training this morning. The 4 or 5 days I had off training is the longest break I've had here in Austria. Back in Australia, I would often take 4 or 5 days off training if I had a lot of work or other commitments to do. And coming back to training was fine. It was just normal to have that time off. But here, where I'm training so hard and so many hours, it felt very different having this time off. When I came back, I felt like I'd lost a lot of touch on the ball. I just couldn't feel it. My timing was off and I was struggling to judge the flight and the length of the ball. So it's amazing how quickly my body has adjusted to practicing hours and hours a day and how disrupting that rhythm really put my whole game off.